Welcome to Stars and Stripes. Our flag is the symbol of freedom and justice for all. Many brave Americans fought and died for this freedom. America was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. When we allow our Constitution to be destroyed and God is taken out of America, there is and can be no freedom.
In 2016, I was your nominee for North Carolina Secretary of State. So I want to start off by saying thank you, because you're probably part of the 500,000 North Carolina Republicans that nominated me in 2016, and you're probably part of the 2.16 million North Carolina voters who have already voted La Paglia for Secretary of State in one go-around. 2016 was an important year. When we challenged Elaine Marshall, we found out that she had been commissioning illegal aliens as notaries all across North Carolina. Had somebody come up to me, tell me about it. I researched it, I dug into the issue. I got the state auditor to spill the beans on some of the stuff we needed to know. And I drove home the issue with her, just didn't have enough time to really spread it and didn't know enough quite yet. But since 2016, we've stayed on the issue. And when I was with you last summer, I said that we knew she had 325 illegal alien notaries last year. But Senator Norman Sanderson of Craven County, toward the end of last year, went back to her and got a new count. And as we're sitting here today, Shady Elaine Marshall has over 600 illegal alien notaries all across North Carolina. What can they do? They can verify other people's identities on documents that are being signed. They can transfer property with serious and sometimes criminal implications there. Most importantly, they can single-handedly authorize absentee ballot applications and absentee ballots in elections. You might want to know, are they actually doing it? Yes, in the 2018 election, Jay Delancey and the Voter Integrity Project sampled some absentee ballots across the state, and we found illegal alien notary stamps authorizing absentee ballots. If they've started doing it, they're not going to stop on their own. They're only going to do more of it. It's only going to become a bigger problem. I am here to stop it. In 2016, I said my first official act will be to revoke the Notary Commission of all illegal alien notaries in North Carolina. Period. End of discussion. I have been working in Raleigh with the legislature. I've been working with our friends, and this is a real opportunity to get this. We have never put the same challenger back at Shady Elaine, and that's one of the ways she keeps winning all the time. She has a new mark to run against. But this time we've got name recognition, over 2.6 million votes already cast for La Paglia. We've got an issue. We're going to brand her as the Secretary of Sanctuary, tie her up with all those sanctuary sheriffs that are doing bad on ICE, and have Trump come to town, build a wall around them, and just wall them off, okay? We have got this. I am endorsed in the Secretary of State's race by Mark Meadows from the western part of the state, Trump's right-hand man in Washington. But more importantly around here, I'm endorsed by Dr. Greg Murphy, your friend and congressman, and I really appreciate his support all along on this race. There are three things that the Secretary of State's office does in general. There's a bucket of registration, a bucket of regulation, and a bucket of relationships. Your registrations are your corporate registrations. And I got the question earlier, what can we do? If you have an LLC in North Carolina, and most people that I know have more than one LLC when they start opening businesses, every year you have to pay a $200 fee to renew your registrations. It's for paperwork and administrative stuff. $200 for every LLC. But if you had an S corporation, you'd be paying $25 for the same paperwork going through the same process. Now, this is part of Elaine's shakedown machine that has been working for years in Raleigh. And what we need to do is get in there, flatten and lower those fees. Now the $25 fee may have to come up to $50 or something like that. We understand that. But we're going to stop gouging everybody on that $200 LLC fee. And I'm sure that Representative Humphreys and everybody else in there will help me figure out the best way to get that balanced out so that the small businesses of North Carolina are not taking it one cut at a time. You know, they just end up another thing, another thing. I say that Elaine's office is a shakedown machine because that's all it is. But moving on from registrations, you got the corporate registrations, your notary registration, liens are registered there, a whole bunch of registry issues in the office. Then you got regulation. All the state securities laws and regulations flow through the Secretary of State's office. Banking regulations flow through the Secretary of State's office. Now, we as Republicans are not real fond of too much regulation, are we? We want as little regulation as possible, so I'll make sure we work to get that accomplished. But when we do have regulation, you take Cherie Berry as a model in North Carolina, how are we going to deal with regulation? The Democrats use regulation to beat you upside the head with it and make you do things. We as Republicans want to make it as easy as possible to be in compliance with regulations. So we want as little regulation as possible and for it to be as easy as possible to be in compliance. This means that the office has to be far more customer service oriented than it has been in Elaine's reign of 24 years. We have to turn it around, think about the customers, make it easier to interface with the office, get the business done to the people. Right now it's a built up bureaucracy that, it's just awful to deal with. I tell the stories that I've heard all across the state. One lady, she was sending some paperwork in, filled out all the paperwork, signed her first name, middle initial, last name, wrote out her title as president after that, sent the paperwork off to Raleigh. Here in a few weeks it came back to her in an envelope. There was a note on it. And the note said, "Ma'am, you need to put a period after your middle initial before we're going to process your paperwork." I'm not kidding. This is the type of thing that happens all the time. One lady was so concerned because her husband had passed away, left her a couple of businesses. They needed to send in some paperwork, called the Secretary of State's office. They wouldn't talk to her for anything. She ended up filing 2 sets of paperwork, sending them 2 checks, just so that she didn't get caught, and was waiting to see which one would come back and say it was right. Now that is not a way for a state government to be interacting with the citizens. That's making us work for the government, not making the government work for us. I'm big on making the government work for us. Next thing, and this leads into Dr. Murphy, Secretary of State has a unique role that they can play. Elaine's never done this, but we could play it in developing and pursuing better relationships between our state and D.C. and between the state government all the way down to local governments as well. It's a conduit for relationship and moving some things. And one of the most important things in a relationship is listening. And so what I'll be doing, I've already been doing it all across the state, is listening for things that can help make those relationships better. When Greg was elected and sworn in, I was up there in D.C. visiting. Actually, Leo went with me on that trip. We had a lot of fun visiting all the congressional offices, making sure they knew that this is something I'm intent on doing, is being a better conduit between D.C. and the people of North Carolina. So with all that, I'd sure appreciate your continued support in the primary. We have got a leg up on this race. I've got some strong support from people here in North Carolina. There's a whole list of sheriffs across North Carolina that are backing me because this is a law and order issue, folks. We have got to stop these illegal aliens from undermining the rule of law every day in North Carolina. I'm Michael LaPaglia. I appreciate your support in the past, and I ask for your continued support.
AC Sykes, pleasure to be with you today. Actually, normally my wife travels with me. She's starting to feel some of the strain of campaigning, so she's at home resting and getting rid of a little cold. But so you don't miss her, she's here. A lot of you have seen her already, and I show it because, to share with you a little story, we celebrated our 34th anniversary on Saturday. We met at North Carolina State Universities, have promised to grow old together. We were making progress toward that goal. Her request for our anniversary was 34 minutes of not campaigning. Now, we were in the Charlotte area because I was getting ready to kick off a 2-day tour with Senator Cruz to the state. And so we were at a restaurant of a supporter that was there that evening. And so I took my eyes with attention off, and the young lady runs up and she got a palm card in every person in that restaurant. And so I held my part of the deal, but she couldn't hold through with hers at that time. She's passionate about what we're doing, and I'll share with you a little bit about that. Both of us did graduate from North Carolina State. I have an electrical engineering degree. From there, I got my Master's of Science in Management from there as well. I've served in a number of different capacities there. I was just inducted into their Engineering Hall of Fame. I still lecture there from time to time. I was born in Durham, where my father was a policeman. My brother actually retired as a policeman there as well. But I'm running for office as an outsider. Because I've been in business all along. This political process is new to me. I'm learning what it's like. I've been in industry. I've been a CEO of 3 companies. I've been a group president and an officer of a Fortune 500, where I was responsible for 35,000 people in 20 countries. I know what it's like to do business internationally, which is important for North Carolina. See, when I've had those opportunities to be international, I worked in countries where there was corruption. I worked in countries where there was socialist structure. Right? I understand because of that how fortunate we are to have a type of government that we have. It's worth fighting for. It's worth standing for. And I've seen what corruption does, right? Not only to the government structure, but how it oppresses the people. And so while I've got a strong business background, the reason I'm running for office is to fight for our values. I was raised in North Carolina. I'm a 10th generation North Carolinian. Both sides of my family go back before the Revolutionary War. Right? Those North Carolina values were instilled in my character as I grew up. And part of that is the biblical values, where my parents raised me in a Christian home. And I had the benefit of coming to know Christ in the early age of 7. And I had a chance to live my faith journey. And that faith journey has gotten me to this point at this time. I see what's happening to our values. And it concerns me. And I know that the people that we have around fighting to go the wrong way make it so that it's your people of faith that's difficult to stand up and to run. And until there's enough of us that are bold and brave enough to stand up and run, we're going to continue to get more of what we've got. And so I'm putting the other behind, and I'm standing up for you and for our values to fight for what's right. Now, look, we heard about the notary issue, and this is an important issue. It needs to be resolved. It's one example of the rule of law not being followed. It's one example of corruption. It's not the only example. Values are important. The incumbent, who's been there for 24 years and wants another 4-year cycle, got an award recently. See, I was in D.C. standing with our president with the Sanctity of Life in the March for a Lifetime. She was in Chapel Hill, and she got a Lifetime Achievement Award from Planned Parenthood. So the differences are so, kind of weird, isn't it? Lifetime Achievement Award from Planned Parenthood. It's like the opposite of life. And so, but the values and what we stand for are radically different. Look, we've already heard, there is no doubt that this career politician has not taken our state in the right direction. We need to go get it fixed. I've created tens of thousands of jobs. Many of those have been manufacturing jobs. Right? I like the opportunity to take that experience here. I've also had the opportunity to turn companies around, to fix ones that are broken. Engineers do those types of things. I like the opportunity to do that here. My request to you is to look at our website, which is EC4NC, ECFORNC, and look to see what we've accomplished in the past, because it's a good predictor of what we will accomplish in the future. Right? So we were homeschool parents, we were foster parents, we were Sunday school teachers, we were deacons in the church. I'm a mentor to Pregnancy Life Centers. I'm on the advisory board for National Pro-Life Group, and I've been endorsed by some key important people. One of those was Dr. James Dobson, right? Who you may know Dr. Dobson when he founded Focus on the Family. And his endorsements are not easy to come by, but it's my stand for life and what I've done in that area that he recognized. Right? Another one is Buck Newton. You may know Buck Newton, Senator Newton, that's in this area, that lives in Wilson. He likewise stands for values. It's because of that he chairs my campaign. As I mentioned, just Senator Cruz, we just finished a 2-day tour that started on Sunday. We finished on Monday. We did Charlotte, Winston-Salem, and Raleigh. And you know how privileged I am to have a conservative warrior like the senator come through North Carolina for me to fight. Right, to fight for our campaign, but more importantly, he understands how important it is in North Carolina for us, a purple state, to take this state in the 2020 election, right? From the top all the way down to the bottom, and the importance of the Secretary of State's office. This office regulates businesses. As a businessman, I understand when it's time that we need to regulate and when it's time for government to get out of the way. This office also drives economic growth. Right? As a man that's created tens of thousands of jobs, we can sit down with other business owners and help drive that growth. 80% of the employment in North Carolina comes from small businesses. I own a small business. I can appreciate what it takes for those businesses to be successful. And we look forward to encouraging them. But while North Carolina economic activity is going well in general, it's lumpy. See, the big cities are doing well, but the rural areas are not. 48 counties are actually shrinking in their population, right? There's some opportunity where we need to help the other people, the forgotten parts of North Carolina, to be successful also. So I'd like to invite you to come along and help me in that area as we take on that fight. Now in the Greenville area, we've had a lot of time to spend some time here. We have some roots in this area. I happen to have an aunt and uncle who graduated from ECU, so for all the ECU fans that are here, we have some ties back in that area. We look forward to being able to speak at Tim Butler's church this year, as we have some close ties there. If you go to our website, you can actually join our prayer team. Our campaign has a prayer team. It meets on Mondays at noon, and you can sign up on our website to be a part of that. My wife and I's pastor, when we were in college, is the one who leads that team of people that has 30 minutes of an open time of prayer for the country and for our campaign as we go through it. So I'm EC Sykes, EC for NC. There's more information that you can get on our website there about our background. My encouragement is to go do the research. Likely what you get in the future is what the person has done in the past. I encourage you to go look what our history has been to see if that fits with your sets of values. Thank you for your vote. God bless.
I thought I asked a question of both of them. They said about the illegals being notary republics. A notary republic is all you need to sign an absentee ballot. All they have to do is stamp it. What are you going to do?
So we actually know through a list that Senator Sanderson has all of the illegal alien notaries that are in North Carolina as of last November. And when we're in office, we will have the full list up to that date. The first step will be to revoke their commissions formally with a letter. The problem is, once they've already got a stamp, we have to get them to return it. And that can be quite a concern too. But this leads into the broader issue of the whole notary program, because we need to get in there and reform our stamps. Our stamps right now are just a name and I'm a notary on it. There's no expiration date on it. There's no control number on it. It's a very wide open stamp system that we've got. So we're going to have to reinforce that too. And on top of that, if you've applied for a notary commission and you just checked the box that said I am a citizen, there was never any verification done for you to prove you are a citizen of the United States. So we've got to go back through the whole notary program, audit every one of them, get the legislature to help us get the documents in to prove everybody in the system is either a citizen or a green card holder. Those are the two things that are able to be a notary in the United States of America. Get all that straightened out, and we got to correct the stamp issue, get it updated so there are control numbers on it. Then we have to work with the legislature on the elections laws and the State Board of Elections in reviewing the absentee ballot application process and the absentee ballot authorization process to close the loophole. Some of that we can do immediately internally inside the Secretary of State's office. Some of it takes working with the legislature and the State Board of Elections. I would also like to see the Secretary have a larger role in the elections process. Right now, I don't think there's anybody that would say North Carolina elections are run great like they should be. We all saw problems in the past couple of cycles. And so I think we need to move the Secretary of State, who in most states is the Chief Elections Officer. We need to reconnect that with the State Board of Elections, because the State Board is an unelected, unaccountable board. That's one of the reasons we get problems. Part of the appointments come from the governor, part of the appointments come from the legislature. It's just a mess. So I'd like to see an elected accountable official inserted stronger in that role, which would help us, again, straighten out the absentee ballot issue.
The process Michael laid out is an obvious process, right? It's a business structured process. You go through the business structured manners. And it's important that we comply with the legal structure to do it. So while we have an illegal system here, where we want to decommission in a structured legal way that's there. So we continue to drive the rule of law. That's one reason I want to point out the rule of law for myself. But I also want to make sure that you note and understand, in addition to the illegal alien issue, if you've been reading what's been going on in Charlotte, we have an issue also with notaries with criminal backgrounds. And so this is not only just an illegal piece, we got a problem here. But let me share with you some experience. I've gone in and fixed a number of broken companies. And there's a pattern I found when I fix companies, right? And I don't care who thinks they know what's going on, whether it's the board of directors or the lead in it. Whenever you really start fixing it, what you think is broken is only a piece of what's really broken, right? Now you've got a person who's been in charge for 24 years. I want to tell you from my experience that there's going to be a whole lot of stuff that's going to need some attention as we go through this process. We've uncovered a piece of it that's there. The Secretary of State's office is one of the most complex, maybe second behind the Attorney General, offices in our state government. It's important for us to have somebody with experience and proven ability to go fix it, because this is not a time to learn on the job. We got a lot to get done in a short period of time. You have a question?
Yes, I was wondering, what's the qualifications of becoming a person that has, that be a notary?
Yeah. And so you can go through and fill out the application process that's online. It's there. Michael probably has studied it and knows all the details toward it there. My intent is to comply with the rule of law that's structured there. My intent is to drive that process so there's clarity that's there. And I want to emphasize to you that it's clear that that process hasn't been followed in the past, right?
I'm very concerned hearing that one of the qualifications is having a green card is okay. I think you need to be an American citizen, period.
Well,
to be able to do that. So when when either one of you are elected, and we're going to elect Republicans, but when we're working on that legislature, please address that.
so here's the challenge. She's asking about, I said you could be a green card holder and also be a notary. There's a couple of things I want to address on that right now. We have seen more and more originally illegal aliens transition to green card holders in the United States. If you look at the data that Senator Sanderson got over the past 3-year arc of non-citizen notaries, because that would include green card holders, the illegals are staying steady, but we have seen a boost in green card holders that are now achieving it. The problem is, in 1984, the United States Supreme Court held that a green card holder can be a notary. Justice Rehnquist, who was not yet Chief Justice, was the dissenting opinion in that, and I agree with him, and I think you agree with him, that you ought to be a citizen to be a person who is authorizing legal documents throughout the United States. So this is all going to be Supreme Court decision in the future to have to deal with. What we have to go through with the legislature is say, okay, do we revoke someone's commission who is a green card holder? Because that'll trigger one line of lawsuit moving forward. Or do we institute some legislation that challenges the current status, because that'll trigger another line, or do we do both, quite frankly? The first thing we have to do is get the illegals weeded out. And as soon as I do that, they will come sue me. I have no doubt they've already written the lawsuit, quite frankly, because I talked about it in 2016. And they will claim that we are infringing on the illegal aliens' constitutional rights. They'll bring it under the 14th Amendment and say, we're infringing on their rights. And that's not going to be true. That will go all the way to the Supreme Court to establish the open borders. Then we've got to look at the green card. But what I can tell you right now is that you're right to be worried, because the data shows a huge expansion in green card holders becoming notaries. I don't think that's just because I've been talking about it and they've been saying, hey, wow, I'm a green card holder. I could be, because there are a couple of big chunks of the illegals that had been consistently becoming notaries, and now this group of immigration people who are moving into green card status. The gal that I originally found this out about, when the lady told me she's DACA and has a a notary stamp, said that can't be. And I went and interviewed her. I had my phone in my pocket, and we did an interview. She's now a green card holder. I don't know what hoops she jumped through, but this gets back to the relationship part. This is now a federal immigration issue, and we need the relationship. I have them with Homeland Security in D.C. to work through how all of this is happening and work with our congressmen and senators to make sure we can start closing these loopholes. And it is just one example of the fraud that we know we're going to find in that office. When you've got a 24-year-old bureaucracy that is built up in there, this is the opening issue for everything else we're going to find in that office. Well aware of it. This is going to be a wonderful opportunity to straighten out North Carolina, is my opinion. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Yes, sir?
If either one of you, whoever is elected, and you find the fraud and corruption within the Secretary of State's office, I would like you to make that public.
Absolutely.
So we know
Let's let.
who it is and how deep it is.
So, I mean, certainly, right, what we need is more transparency on what's going on here. You need and deserve to understand what's happening. And as I told you, look, we have the issue of the notaries. And even you got issues now with policy statements that are being made that looks like they're being set up. So this is going to impact the November elections. So there's some concerns. It's not all the way understood yet, but it looks suspicious. And this is a complex office. This office is much bigger than a notary.
Can't we vote for both of you?
Afraid not.
And so we've got to go through the entire office to get everything cleaned up. So as I travel around the state, I hear lots of other issues that are there as well. I'll give you an example. North Carolina rate is number 34 in the nation in the cost of doing business. It's too expensive to do business here. And if we're going to drive economic growth, we got to come down to play in the top tier parts. The last company that I was a public CEO of, I took out that overhead cost structure by 27% in the first year. We've got to drive this structure through. Our government has gotten too large. We've got to limit our government and peel this activity back. And so this is a complex activity. There's lots of issues that's going to need to be fixed. You need to be able to handle more than one issue at a time as you go through this in order for us to set the stage for economic growth in North Carolina.
Can I have one more thought on the corruption
Yeah.
issue?
In speaking about corruption, we don't just talk about what's in the Secretary of State's office either. The unique position of the Secretary of State is that it can talk about other offices throughout government. And what I haven't said to you today, but that we know is also true, is that illegal aliens are also unlawfully being licensed as insurance agents, nurses, and teachers in North Carolina right now. So when I'm sitting at the Council of State table explaining that I've revoked the illegal alien commissions for notaries, I will be pointing at the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Commissioner of Insurance, and the other office holders saying, we got to straighten this issue out all around the table because it's bigger.
Amen.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right.
I trust you enjoyed today's program. Please contact your congressman and let him know you are displeased with our Constitution being butchered. Remember to pray for America. Be strong and of good cheer. Remember, America is worth fighting and dying for, as is Jesus our Lord. Until next time, this is Kenneth T. Jones saying, so long, friends.